Cabin Sports Radio.
Here comes the siren. I want to go higher. Oh, my goodness. Will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal.
Oh, baby, for sure.
Cabin Sports Radio starts now.
Lekter and Unbreakable Mike Gibbons in the house for another episode of Cabin Sports Radio. How you doing today, Mr. Mike Gibbons?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Very well, very well. Lots to talk about tonight. We got Team NT squash in the house. Super Bowl 53 is set. The Pats versus the Rams. We'll talk about that. We'll talk some NHL and even a bit of dog sledding as Cabin Sports Radio starts right now.
The Cabin Sports Radio podcast, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward.
Cabin Sports Radio brought to you by our friends at Sport North, moving sport forward. Less than a month until the Canada Winter Games in Red Deer, Alberta. We are getting closer and closer, and we have members of the Team NT squash team that will be representing the Northwest Territories at those games in the house a little bit later on in the show. But first, we're going to start off with the NFL. The NFC and AFC Championship games took place last night. The first time in NFL history that both championship games have gone to overtime. And there was a little bit of controversy, too.
Just a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit of controversy. The Los Angeles Rams emerging victorious over the New Orleans Saints 26-23. And the New England Patriots headed yet again to the Super Bowl with a 37-31 thriller victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. Mike, you said you've never watched so much football as this past weekend.
Yeah, yesterday was just a great day of football. First time since 2012, both road teams. So both the New Orleans Saints and the Kansas City Chiefs rolling into these conference championships as the number one seed. Home field advantage, that's what you play the whole season for, all 16 games, to secure that home field advantage when it matters most.
Yeah.
It didn't work out for them.
No.
Two absolute thrillers. One heartbreaking defeat if you're a Saints fan. We'll touch on that. But then on the other side, you've got the GOAT. Both games completely lived up to the billing. You had the Kid versus the GOAT. Two juggernauts offensively in the NFC. You really couldn't have asked for much more. The end result, we get a rematch of the 2002 Super Bowl when the Rams were still in St. Louis before they were relocated.
Back when they were the greatest show on turf.
The greatest show on turf.
Yeah.
It kind of comes full circle now for Brady and Belichick. They won their first Super Bowl together in that 2002 Super Bowl against the Rams when they were still playing out of St. Louis. So now they will try to go for their sixth.
Back when Tom Brady was just a fresh-faced nobody.
A 24-year-old that still has it.
That unseeded number one overall pick, Drew Bledsoe. How times have changed. He's gone on to be the greatest quarterback in NFL history. You kind of start to get the sense all these years later, 16 years later, Tom Brady, 41 years old, still at the top of his game. Arguably at the top of his game still. You kind of get the sense that, does Tom Brady want to be the best NFL quarterback in history, or does he just want to be the best professional athlete in world history?
He's making a pretty good run at it. 17 years now. This will be the 9th Super Bowl appearance in the Brady-Belichick era. 5-3 in their first 8, obviously going for their 7th. And the chatter is always, if they get mirrored in a 2-game losing streak over the course of the season, they lose 3 of 5.
Yeah.
The conversation becomes, this is the end. This is the end of this fantastic era. And that's you sort of had the feeling heading into this game that this might be, no one would bat an eye, or no one would have thought any less of them if the Chiefs came and won this game. This was widely regarded as a sort of handing of the torch. Patrick Mahomes is special, very likely to win the MVP. 5,000-yard season, 50 TDs, 11 interceptions. Those numbers are absurd.
And you saw that on display last night, too.
And he's 26 years old. He will be the face of the NFL, I'm sure, once Brady leaves the sport, if he does. 41 years old, still going strong.
Yep.
He will probably secure the largest contract the league has ever seen in a couple years' time. So this could have been a chance for there to be a passing of the torch, and that didn't happen because Tom Brady and his clutch gene emerged victorious once again, and it was just clinical.
Yes. So I mean, a little bit of controversy in both games. The controversy in the Patriots-Chiefs game, I'm not so sure that I'm convinced that I would call that a controversy, but a lot of people saying that it may be time for the NFL to look at how they do overtime. It used to be just straight sudden death.
Yep.
Now it's kind of like a pseudo sudden death where the rule is the first team that has possession off the kickoff in overtime, they have the opportunity to score a touchdown. If they score a touchdown, game's over. If they have to settle for a field goal, the opposite team gets a possession to either tie that and continue the overtime or go for a touchdown and win the game. I personally, I don't have any problem with that setup.
No.
Some people think, it's a little, I don't know. I don't actually really know what the issue is, unless it's just that people hate seeing New England win,
right.
And they did it again, and everyone's mad. Obviously, though, the bigger controversy happening in the New Orleans Saints LA Rams game, the NFC Championship, which was determined basically by a blown call, and this is not even close. This isn't a controversy. Even if you're an LA Rams fan, you got away with one.
Well,
there.
even when you have the player in question who committed the foul, Nickel Robbie Coleman, and it's hilarious when you listen to the audio and when he was pressed by reporters after the game, he knew he committed a foul.
Yeah,
he turned around. He admitted he was waiting for a flag to be thrown. He saw no flag, and he just saw the incomplete sign, which would have been a huge relief for him.
Yes.
The funny thing to me, it's not funny. The unfortunate thing, there wasn't one foul committed on the play. There was two blatant plays made in the same sequence. The helmet to helmet, which eluded the refs too somehow. But between that and not even attempting to make a play at a ball, not even looking at the throw, you get a penalty for screening a pass. He completely drilled Tommy Lee Lewis without even looking at the play, and to boot, helmet to helmet. It was really and you hate to see a game determined by something like that, but you also at the same time. You hear, had the reffing been different, it wouldn't have gone this way. Had that play been called, as it should have been, and a flag been thrown on the play, we would have been less than 2 minutes to go. First down, 1:48, I think the time would have been, with a first down.
On like the 1 or the 2 or whatever it was.
It was close. They didn't get a score. They settled for a field goal, but that would have completely changed the course of the game. They could have effectively run off another minute and a half or so, really to about the 20-second mark, and secured what hopefully would have been a game-winning TD, field goal. So they settle for the field goal, and then they weren't able to convert a score. And then the Rams go the other way, get a miraculous, can't take anything away from Zerline, 48-yard field goal attempt, and then he got another 57 in OT to win it. But that none of this would have happened had that been called.
And it's unfortunate in a way that becomes overshadowed by the obvious missed call that would have, like we say, would have pretty much ended the game right there. But yeah, it's really unfortunate that you have this incredible ending, regardless of this play that never should have allowed anything afterwards to happen. But a 57-yard field goal, that's an incredible way to win a game. It's just sad that it's got this dark cloud hanging over it.
And that will probably remain the talking point until Super Bowl 53 kicks off in 2 weeks. And just all the audio you've heard since. The head coach, Sean Payton, was called by the vice president of officiating immediately after the contest. And is that going to make you feel better? I think when I heard about that, the one thing I think about is the NBA is notorious for putting out these last 2-minute reports, which the official office will issue within 48 hours of every game to say, oh yeah, you know all those times you thought there were double dribbles? There were. It's like, is this supposed to make me feel better? So of course, every Saints player, every Saints fan, everyone in the organization is hearing that from the vice president of officiating. Yeah. We totally blew it. Oh, not on one play. There was actually 2 blown calls on the same sequence. We blew it. I'm so sorry to tell you. You're just going to have to digest that.
Now, if you ever want to hear an exhibition in incredible grace, here is the post-game press conference with New Orleans Saints head coach Sean Payton.
It was simple. They blew the call. They said it should never have not been a call. They said not only was it interference, it was helmet to helmet. There were 2 calls. They couldn't believe it. We spoke initially, then I called to follow up, and the first thing Al said when I got on the phone, we messed it up. And but we went to these league meetings, and we sit as an ownership group, and we don't further evaluate the replay system. You know, there's just too much at stake. And it's a hard job for those guys because it's happening fast. But I don't know if there was ever a more obvious pass interference call that, you know, here it is, the NFC Championship game. So, tough one to swallow. Listen, they played well. I mean, our team played well enough to win the game. We should have. It's tough to get over it. My problem with it was I just don't know if we were playing pickup football in the backyard, the team that committed the foul. I mean, it was as obvious a call, and how 2 guys can look at that and come up and arrive with their decision. And it happened though, so we can't dwell on it. We probably never get over it. You know, the truth is, you always some of these losses like this, but one like that, it's too bad.
If there was ever a time when you would say, all right, you know what? You want to lose your mind? You want to throw things possibly at people? You got free reign. This is your opportunity. Go for it. Get it out of your system. We know you need to. That's amazing restraint from someone who just got cheated out of the chance to go to a championship game.
And they really did. That was as blatant as they come. And this, for an organization, so their last appearance in the NFL playoffs, also ending in defeat, the Minneapolis Miracle back in 2017. So this is a fan base. This is a team that has suffered this type of defeat and heartbreak before, but last night was just something extra. When you have the offending player admitting that he made a foul, and then you hear all of the Saints players since saying, that's great. I really don't care at this point. The result is what it is. We have to accept it, and we have to move on.
Yep.
It's really tough.
Yep.
They did put themselves in a position to win, and had that call been made, they almost surely would have won. Not to say that the Rams didn't play well. They also put themselves in a position to win. And it just seemed like after this incident, they came unglued. The first interception of the night that came out of the hands of Drew Brees was in overtime. And that was pretty much all she wrote. And as you alluded to, the 57-yard field goal that iced it in overtime. So they never truly recovered. This one is going to sting for a long time, I think.
Interestingly enough, TSN CFL, I think is their senior analyst nowadays, Dave Naylor, went on today talking about how basically the NFL, there's a very good chance that this is a pivotal moment where, sure, it's what everyone's talking about in the NFL right now. In the league, outside the league, fans, everyone is talking about this blown call. This is a moment where you look at something like this and you think, okay, well, this is a problem. This is something that could happen again. Obviously, hopefully not, but it is something you've seen a precedent now. It's something that could happen again under the rules the way they currently are. The CFL, as CFL fans know, has a rule in place where coaches are allowed to challenge pass interference calls. The NFL does not allow that. And this is a point where that could have very, very easily had a big effect and changed the game. If that rule was different and the NFL had CFL-style rules with the allowance of challenging pass interference penalties or non-penalties,
Right.
we could have seen that game play out as it should have.
Yeah.
And so very interesting that that Dave Naylor broke it down in and I mean, nothing like this happens overnight. This is obviously a pretty big rule change.
Yeah.
The NFL is pretty traditionalist when it comes to rule changes. They don't move too hastily to change things up too much. So there's a very good opportunity or a very good chance that this does not change for quite some time. But Dave Naylor made a very good point saying that this is a moment where people in important positions could look at this and be like, how can we make this better?
We'll reference when those conversations happen. You have to figure this will be an item of discussion during the next Board of Governors or owners meeting, what have you. It would have to be.
And apparently Sean Payton is on the rules committee or the competition committee. I think he might have something to say.
He might be a little outspoken during that portion.
Turning back to the AFC, obviously the New England Patriots, the victor in that game over the Kansas City Chiefs. But another storyline emerged that has a lot of people in the NFL and outside, specifically fans, talking. Tony Romo, former Dallas Cowboys quarterback, perennial choke artist in important situations, has carved out potentially his new career path. He's been doing color commentary all year for the NFL, and many sources saying he had his greatest performance ever last night. Mike, you mentioned you were watching the game and you were blown away by his calls.
He was excellent. He was calling the play a couple of seconds in advance. At any time that they were lining up at the line of scrimmage, he would basically call what they were going to run and almost nailed it perfectly. Especially as it got to the later stages of the fourth and into overtime when you're going to go to your best guys, obviously, when the intensity is ratcheted up a little bit. But he was able to dissect it before it even happened based on how the defense was moving, how it was positioned, where people were on the field, what kind of motion there was on the offensive side ahead of the snap. And he was able to predict it almost perfectly.
Here are some of the top highlights of Tony Romo's AFC Championship performance last night.
They're going to run this ball. Kansas City's got to sell out. There's a handoff to Burkhead. Burkhead pulls ahead and scores the touchdown. I got to put Gronkowski out wide. They've got to get him. He's your guy when it's one-on-one. They finally got him. There he is. On the top of the screen. If he's doubled, you're going to throw inside right here to Edelman. You just look up there and pick him. Here they come after Brady. He goes down the field to Gronk. Turns around, makes the catch. With 4 yards away from... New England's tried to play action earlier. I can't see it here. This has to be a run. Second and goal. To Burkhead. Burkhead to the end zone. Gronk's got a chip. The running back's got to help, so he has time to throw. Once again, Edelman in the middle of the field. Pocket sealed. Down the middle. They've got to go back to the Brady sneak or something, don't they? Oh, they're killing it. Usually means a motion and a run out wide to the right. Here's the handoff into the end zone. The Sony Michel.
Tony Romo, unbelievable performance last night. There was just a small sample size going 5 for 5 on those calls, and apparently that was pretty much the most spectacular thing. The game was pretty good.
It was a great game.
Yeah. But Tony Romo blowing people away. He is now being referred to as Tony Romo-stradamus.
Romo-stradamus.
For his incredible work last night.
The CSR Podcast.
Welcome back to Cabin Sports Radio. We have got members of the Team NT squash team in the house, and Spider Jones, India Edwards, and Raphaelle Poulin, 2 of the 8 players repping Team NT at the upcoming Canada Winter Games in Red Deer. We are less than a month from that happening now. Very exciting stuff. Welcome, everybody, to Cabin Sports Radio. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks. Don't everybody talk at once.
Thanks for inviting me.
Spider, you just had the Junior Squash Championships this past weekend at the Yellowknife Racket Club. How was that?
Did we ever? We had great representation of Yellowknife players, both in the weekday afternoon programs and some of the more select players from the Sunday morning novice group. And we actually had 4 juniors come up from Fort Smith.
Okay. I was there for a little bit. I was there in the morning and looked like you had a pretty good crowd out.
It was fabulous.
Yeah. Lots of good competition.
Yep, it's a great sign for development of junior squash in the NWT.
Okay. And it's something that, at least to my knowledge, has continued to grow pretty steadily over the past 5, 6, 7 years. How are you seeing things this year, and what are you predicting moving forward for squash NWT?
Well, certainly we always have steady growth in Yellowknife, but particularly in Fort Smith. I was advised by Art Taylor, its resident squash coach, that he has twice as many juniors, almost 3 times as many juniors than they do have adults playing in Fort Smith.
Wow.
Which is great growth for squash and Smith.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're also got India Edwards and Raphaelle Poulin in the studio here. 2 players who are looking forward to the Canada Winter Games, and one who has been there before and one who is making their first appearance. India, let's start with you. You're returning for your second Canada Winter Games in just a couple weeks. What are you looking forward to?
Definitely a better outcome than the last games. I was pretty young, just starting out. So this time, looking for larger experience and hopefully just better outcome, pretty much.
Did you learn a lot your first year?
Yeah, it was probably my second out-of-town tournament, and it was huge to start off at the Canada Games. So I definitely learned a lot from that, and then going forward, just improving my squash.
Do you feel like you're in, now that you've been there, you've kind of experienced what the expectations and the anticipation and all that, you've experienced the butterflies that come with a tournament like that. Do you feel like you have grown as a player, and what are you looking forward to this year?
So I was so nervous my first Canada Games, and since then I've gone to numerous tournaments, big tournaments. So this one I know a lot of the girls going that I'm going to be up against, and I definitely know I'm going to do a lot better. I'm going to feel a lot better and just have a better experience.
And medals, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
I mean, I don't want to jinx it or anything.
But you're looking forward to going in and making some noise this year.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Right on. Raphaelle, you are going to your first Canada Winter Games. What are you looking forward to?
Well, I waited 4 years for this, trained really hard, had to catch up to a few people. And now that it's coming up, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like it's there at all. But I'm really looking forward to just bonding with my team, because this is going to be my last one, my first and last one. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm going to have some good games.
Yeah.
I'm going to be happy either way.
It's nice, obviously, having some teammates that have been there before. What has India taught you about what to look forward to and what to expect?
Well, she's talked about it a lot ever since she came back. Just that it's a great experience to have a lot of people, that the butterflies, like you said, once you experience it, like, you can do anything after. But team bonding, that was the biggest part that I heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you've got a bit of a rigorous schedule coming up. Before then, short time here, the Pacific Northwest Squash Championship in Victoria, BC, February 15th to 17th. Little bit of a tune-up, and then you're right off to Red Deer right after that. That's a quick turnaround, but are you looking forward to it?
Oh, yeah. This is gonna be a good prep for our team.
Yeah, nice chance to kind of tune up the skills going into the main dance, if you will. Have you been to this tournament before, the Pacific Squash Championship?
Yes.
Yeah.
Both of us.
Okay. And do you kind of get a sense of what the competition's going to be the week after in Red Deer, or is it a different pool of players entirely?
I can only assume that most players going to the Canada Games will be at this tournament, but because it's so far west, we won't have a lot of the players from the east going.
Okay.
But we've seen a lot of the players that are going to go to this tournament at other tournaments in Alberta, so it's going to be a lot similar to the other tournaments we've been to.
Right. So it might be a good chance to get some confidence going for sure heading in.
Yeah.
Okay. And Spider, just you've been to more than a few Canada Winter Games now and multi-sport events. What are you looking forward to?
Well, it's always exciting when we can test ourselves against Canada's best in the junior ranks. It's a new facility in Red Deer.
Okay.
It's courts with combination of the fiber boards on some of the walls and then glass on the remaining walls, so that'll make things unique. We're playing with the standard ball that's played with across the country, the Dunlop Yellow Dot, but the play on glass back courts can be a little slower, so we'll have to adapt to that pretty quickly.
Okay. And heading into tournaments like this, is there really any point having? Obviously, you want to have expectations. You want your players to play the best they can. That's obviously an expectation going in. But is there really a point in having any kind of lofty expectations, or do you just basically go in and say, "I want you to give it your best"?
Well, I think we focus on process expectations, things like being sufficiently fueled, sufficiently rested, things like dominating the center of the squash court, the tee. Making sure that we play defensive shots when we're in a defensive position. It's easy in squash to try to hit your way out of trouble instead of play your way out of trouble.
Okay.
We'll be looking to ensure that we make great shot selections and strong execution.
Okay.
So it's not just going out and playing on your day. We'll have game plans that we're going in with.
Yeah. So you scout the competition. You kind of know what kind of player they are coming in and adapt your game plan accordingly.
Well, we know that the top three provinces for both the boys and the girls are Ontario, BC, and Alberta.
Okay. And
as India mentioned, we'll likely be seeing the Alberta and BC players at the PNWs coming up immediately prior to the event. We know that for the top provinces and their top players, they're strong players and will be in tough from the beginning. Though there are a number of non-ranked players in the event. Once you get past those three teams. So it'll be a real crapshoot and a great test, great opportunity for us to shine.
Okay. So less than a month now. I'm just making final preparations and one last tournament before then. Very exciting stuff. Good luck to you. Good luck to NWT Squash. Good luck to Team NT. And India and Raphaelle, thank you so much for being on the show. And best of luck in Red Deer and Victoria before that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cabin Sports Radio.
Cabin Sports Radio brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward. Down in the South Slave, the Aurora Ford Classic Dogsledding race took place this past weekend. Danny Bolio took the victory in the two-day event, which takes place every year, the race between Hay River and Enterprise, and then back. The first year in quite a while that they haven't held the race along the river. They actually switched it to the highway to allow for a bit more viewing space for spectators to take all the action in. So sounds like it was a really good event. Kai Reed of Yellowknife placed second, and Anthony Beck finished third, about 2.5 minutes back. Sounds like it was a great race overall.
Crazy over a distance like that, 35-kilometer, 22-mile race. Not a whole lot of separation between those top three. But Danny Bolio would probably know more than most. He had mentioned, it sounded like he had a pretty fun interview with Ollie. He would know better than most that this was the first time in over 30 years that the race was held along the stretch of a highway as opposed to on a frozen river, because he won it the last time around in 1986. So he probably would know better than most that was the last time it was, in fact, held along the stretch of the highway for more people to come out and see it.
Yeah, he's been doing this for a while.
Yeah, that's quite a career.
Yeah, literally our entire lifetimes, and more so than your entire lifetime there, young fella.
Yeah, really.
In 1986. Unbelievable. So congratulations to Danny Bolio for winning the Aurora Ford Classic Dog Race. No surprise to see a Beck name in the top three. They are pretty much synonymous with dog racing here in the North. But great job to everyone who took part in this year's dog race. And for more info on that, check out cabinradio.ca. Got the full story and full rundown and full results on the website there.
The CSR Podcast.
taking a look at all things NHL going on right now. Of course, heading into this weekend, the NHL All-Star game, the traditional break that comes with the NHL skills competition, followed the next day on the Sunday afternoon by the NHL All-Star game. The rosters were set earlier last week, and there are some questionable picks, to say the least.
To say the least.
Taking a look at specifically goaltending in the East.
Fair.
Yeah, so I was taking a little look at it today. I mean, as NHL fans, we were talking about this off the air, Mike. The NHL All-Star game is probably the worst of all All-Star games. I'm a huge NHL fan. It's my favorite professional sports league by far of any of them out there. But I will admit, without question, the NHL has the worst All-Star game in all of pro sports.
I feel like if I was just a casual fan, I wouldn't even know it was this weekend. I know the NBA one always falls around. It's usually around Valentine's Day, mid-February. But they do a great job of promoting their sport, promoting their stars.
Right.
Regular updates in terms of ballot returns, who's going to be appearing in the slam dunk contest, the 3-on-3. There's always the celebrity games ahead of time. 3-point contest, obviously. I don't know what it is with it. It's not the same type of spectacle.
No.
And these are among the best athletes in the world, but it just doesn't offer the same sort of feel.
I think it definitely has something to do with the nature of the game themselves. Hockey, in and of itself, is definitely more of a team game. Yes, there are individual stars that stand out, but overall, the game is won on the strength of a team, not the strength of individuals. And that is kind of reflected in the skills competition, which is something that they added. I don't know exactly what year it started, but it's been around for quite a while now. It's been at least like 15 years. I think they've been doing the skills competition the day before the All-Star game.
Right.
And they brought it in because they wanted to promote the game, promote the stars a bit more. And I think they probably took some cues from the NBA, who has the slam dunk competition, and Major League Baseball, of course, has the home run competition. Two of the coolest skills competitions you can have in sports. NHL just doesn't quite have that.
They have some of them to some degree. The hardest shot is always kind of fun, and then the fastest skater can be pretty fun. The accuracy. I mean, there are elements to it that are kind of fun. It just doesn't
There's nothing
have the
sexy about
No,
those,
that's what I was going to say. It's not the same appeal. Really. And then the game itself, is going to be a joke. But that's pretty much every All-Star game. The NBA All-Star game, they're going to combine for 400 points, not play a lick of defense, and then maybe care in the final 2 minutes or so. But that's just All-Star games.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's just not the same appeal.
No. And I mean, you combine those skills competitions, one-on-one. The hardest slap shot competition. Hardest slap shot, it's like, okay, that's cool. You've got the hardest shot. But, like, there's a very good chance that the person with the hardest shot in the actual entire league, maybe not even at the All-Star game, and maybe not even taking part in the skills competition. So, it's kind of neither here nor there. The fastest skater, like you say, is one of the marquee ones that stands out as a skills competition, but essentially it's just a race. It's not necessarily anything, again, that is something that the game markets itself on.
Right.
Whereas basketball, for up until Steph Curry entered the league and started making 3-point shots, a sexy thing that everyone wanted to emulate, it was the slam dunk. For years and years and years, it's been the slam dunk. That's the thing people want to see in basketball. Same as in Major League Baseball, the home run, the long ball. Everyone wants to see guys just step up to the plate and crush balls out of the park. And they have a competition that does exactly that. It gives you exactly what you want. Really, even in just a normal baseball game. That if a real baseball game was just home run after home run, would anyone complain?
Not really. That's pretty cool.
Would.
No.
So it doesn't have the same feel. But now that we're done tearing apart the game and the concept of the game itself, let's tear apart the actual rosters, shall we?
Oh.
All right. So taking a look at the Eastern Conference, the Atlantic Division, you've got Jimmy Howard in goal.
Why?
So we're looking at the Eastern Conference goaltenders. For some reason, there's 4. I don't understand that. I guess you want to take 2 from both divisions, but you never have 4 goalies on a roster, so it kind of doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, you've got Jimmy Howard of the Detroit Red Wings in the East, like you just said. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Jimmy Howard's stats; they're pretty average. But I guess when you're the goaltender for the Detroit Red Wings this year, probably just having a goals against average below 3 and its save percentage above 900 is an accomplishment
Something
on
to
its own.
celebrate.
So, okay, sure.
Otherwise,
Jimmy
remarkably unremarkable.
Yeah. And then you've got Henrik Lundqvist, arguably one of the greatest goaltenders of all time, arguably the greatest New York Rangers goaltender of all time. He is having the worst season of his career, stats-wise. But hey, let's send him to the All-Star game because people recognize his name.
That's right.
And then Braden Holtby of the Washington Capitals, who is having the second worst season of his NHL career. Ironically, his last season, his worst season, was last year when, of course, he went on to play spectacularly for the Caps throughout the NHL playoffs and won his first Stanley Cup. So, yeah, maybe this is the perfect time to bring Braden Holtby to the All-Star game. But aside from that, that goaltending is tough because there's only so many of them. And some of them, like Frederik Andersen of the Leafs, who definitely deserves to be there stats-wise, is, of questionable health right now. He's back in the Leafs lineup, but would he take a pass on the All-Star game this year? Probably. Carey Price, who's having another good year for the Montreal Canadiens, he's taking a pass on the All-Star game, resting up. Fair enough. So that kind of narrows down your pool of goaltenders that you actually have to pick from. And it almost then becomes, okay, who's the least likely to say, you know what, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm going to rest.
So Andrei Vasilevsky will slide in for Carey Price. That was announced just last week, I believe. So Jimmy Howard, Vasilevsky representing the Atlantic, and then you'll have, I guess, Dubnyk, Rene in the Central.
Yeah.
Holtby,
which that's
Lundqvist.
fine.
Yeah, no, that's there.
Got no problem with those picks.
Holtby, Lundqvist in the Metro Pacific. Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah.
Warranted.
Yep.
John Gibson, Anaheim.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fair pick. Again, playing on a team that's been awful in front of him and has pretty reasonable stats to show for it.
I think you were just as equally surprised, though, with the defensive selections. And most notably, some of the larger omissions.
Yeah. One from the East that you and I, being Leafs fans, know very well in Morgan Rielly, and one from the West that, well, pretty much everyone who's watched hockey for the past 10, 15 years knows really well. The captain of the Calgary Flames, Mark Giordano, who is leading his team to a best in the West season so far. Both these guys having career years, and they're not in the All-Star game.
On good teams. To be fair, both do still have a chance to make it. They're part of the 2019 NHL All-Star Last Men In.
Okay.
Presented by Adidas. But they're up. Their fate rests in the hands of fans. So one player from each division will be chosen by fans to go to the game. And basically, they've listed one player from every single team. But in each division, of course, there are upwards of 8 teams. Only one of them will get in. So Riley and Giordano are both listed, but that somewhat feels as a bit of a slap in the face to two people who are undoubtedly in the Norris Trophy conversation.
Absolutely.
On good teams, especially when you look at the Flames, West leading Calgary Flames. Toronto, they've tapered off a little bit of late, but you figure they'll be in the mix come the end of the season. So those stood out, I think, as the 2 largest defensive omissions. But again, they might have a chance with the last men in if the fans deem them sexy enough. But of course, Riley would have to go against the likes of Alexander Barkov, Patrice Bergeron, Shea Weber, other names on that list. While Giordano in the Pacific, Ryan Getzlaf, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Leon Draisaitl, Kopitar, Brock Besser, to name a few. So outside chance of getting in, you would have liked to see them, I think, on that initial list of people named to the team.
Yeah, but just the fact that in the entire league leaders in stats for defensemen, these are 2 of the top 3 in scoring.
Yeah.
And they're just bubble guys when it comes to the All-Star game. How does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you say, these are 2 guys that without short of something like drastic happening, like their games completely falling off a cliff, which I don't think is going to happen because they both look great this year. They're both playing with very good teams and are getting top minutes as they should with those teams. Barring something like that happening, these are undoubtedly going to be 2 finalists for the Norris Trophy. How do you have 2 unquestionable Norris Trophy candidates not be on their respective conferences' All-Star teams? And it doesn't make sense.
And you alluded to it earlier with some of the other players being selected based on name alone. They might not be having the most remarkable season to date, but their brand, their name, that's they got voted in based on that alone, whether it by fans, management.
Drew Doughty, he's a -15 so far this season.
But then
why is he there?
I look at Giordano more than Riley. Just the name factor. This is the heart and soul of that Calgary Flames team, West leading Calgary Flames team. Both excellent puck-moving defensemen, top power play minutes, but can do it on the back end as well. So it really raises a question of why they were left off that initial list.
And he's been the guy since the guy, Jerome McGinley, left the Flames, who just recently, the Calgary Flames announced they're going to retire his number 12. Right. So, really nice send-off to Jerome McGinley and the incredible the incredible career that he put together. Elsewhere in the NHL, you alluded earlier to the Leafs and their struggles as of late. Yeah, we're done with the All-Star game now. The Toronto Maple Leafs, 3-7 in their last 10. We were saying, I texted you over the weekend after their win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. I was like, we were talking last week about how the Leafs they're not winning those marquee matchups.
Yeah.
They're winning the games that you expect them to win, which is keeping them in the good position that they are. But they're not winning those marquee matchups against the Bostons and the Pittsburghs and the Tampa Bays. They can't seem to get it done in those games. Won a big game in Tampa Bay, 3-2, and then went on to lose to Florida and Arizona. Again, those are the kinds of games they should be winning.
They're benefiting somewhat. They're still afloat, obviously, second in the Atlantic Division. But the cushion that they're holding over not only Boston, but Montreal now has crept right back into the thick of the playoff picture.
There is no stuffing left in that cushion.
A team that I think both of us said would struggle to even make the playoffs.
We should just stop saying things.
We're gonna eat our own words at some point. But they're benefiting, thankfully for their sake, from a really good start. They got off to a great start.
Yeah.
But we spoke about it off air. I raised the question of getting those marquee wins. They lose their season series to Boston 3-1. They got smoked the first time they played in Tampa Bay 4-1. Made them look very human.
Yeah.
Then they come back with that nice bounce back road win. And that's another interesting point. If it weren't for their very good road record, 16-6-1, I believe it is, they've got an extremely pedestrian home record.
Right.
I think it's 13-11 or something like that at Scotiabank Arena, which is quite
because they play at home too often on Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah, the Saturday games have been no help to them whatsoever.
They've been awful on Saturdays.
Outside of that initial good start, the post-Christmas slump continues. 3-7 in their last 10, and 2 losses to teams they quite frankly should not have lost to.
No.
After a win that you thought, all right, this might jumpstart something here. Matthews struggling to score. Marleau 1 point in his last 12 games, I believe. He's been held scoreless in 11 of his last 12. Thankfully, you've got the spark that is the Marner and Tavares line, but now talk that they're going to break that up so that Babcock can ignite something in Matthews, play him alongside Marner.
Yep.
And then you've got William Nylander, 4 points through 20 games, which, if my math stands, is a point per game. Not a mark you want to hit, especially after that lengthy contract dispute. So things aren't clicking right now, especially offensively, which was their bread and butter to start the year. Nice that Anderson is back in the fold after missing 8 games with injury. But they got to start getting some wins here.
Well, and that's interesting, too, because it would have been so easy to look at that Freddie Anderson, the rock in net, getting injured and like, oh, okay, well, that's why the team's struggling, because Frederik Anderson's not there. They're probably not getting the goaltending. And backup Garrett Sparks was out as well. They had to make an emergency signing at former Winnipeg Jets goaltender Michael Hutchinson came in. And it would be so easy to be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's why. They've got this guy that they had to bring in, But Hutchinson put together 5 pretty solid starts for them. 2.64 goals against average, 9.14 save percentage, 1 shutout. You can't look at that guy and say he's the reason they were struggling. One guy that the Toronto Maple Leaf faithful have been looking at and pointing the finger at is Jake Gardiner.
Yeah.
He missed the team's last couple games out with an injury. Probably the best possible thing for him right now as he is getting keyed on and was hearing the Boo Birds last week against Colorado.
Yeah, he was beat bad. That was a game I think they also would have liked to, but Colorado's been real hot of late. But there was a play, I believe it was in the third or late in the second, Carl Soderberg beat him pretty badly, and the fans did not like that. He was simply outworked, outmuscled, and it ended up in the back of the Leafs net. So he's sort of bearing this one. I think a lot of people aren't forgetting that -5 in that Game 7 against Boston, what ended up being the Leafs' last game last season. But unfortunate, he's bearing most of it right now. You don't like to see that.
You remember hashtag Free Jake Gardiner?
Yeah.
Long time since that,
that's
my
right.
friend. Now he's just like, hashtag leave Jake Gardiner alone, please.
What might very well be his last season with the Leafs. It's feeling like it.
That'll do it for another episode of Cabin Sports Radio. Back next Monday. We'll talk to you then.